Hi, Skyler. How are you?
Great. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank
Okay.
you so much, and welcome to the Talks with Dasha.
Thank you. Welcome to Grew HQ.
Yay, awesome. So you are building hotels on the moon. Let's start
Yes.
here. Are you serious?
Yes.
Tell me more.
So yeah, we're Grew Space. We're the company building the first hotel on the moon. We start by sending a machine that's going to make bricks on the moon. First product made ever on the moon. And we're also going to demo in inflatable habitat. And so really the key here is the long-term vision is we want humans to live on the moon and Mars. We want the first cities on the moon and Mars. We want to build the next countries on the moon and Mars.
Okay.
You know, we live in this time in human history where this is actually possible. And so the question is, what is the fastest way to do this on an economic level? And so what we've taken about Grew is we're going to build the first hotel on the moon and use that as the economic wedge towards building permanent lunar infrastructure on the moon, Mars, and beyond. And that starts with hotels. Yeah.
That's super nice and very interesting.
Yes.
Before we dive deeper, who is Skyler Chan?
I am someone who likes space a lot. I grew up just being very obsessed with space. Wanted to become an astronaut. When I was in high school, at 16, I had the opportunity to learn how to fly gliders. So glider is a plane that doesn't have an engine, basically. And got to do that in Air Force Base. It was a very interesting and fun experience. But it also taught me a lot about just life and meaning and what I personally wanted to do in life. The conclusion I came towards was, okay, I can continue following this path of me going to space, right? But I go up to space, come back down. Is that all there is to it? Not really.
Not enough.
Not enough, right? So I was like, wait, but like you and I, okay, we're young enough. We live in this time in human history where we can actually move humanity to the moon and Mars. Like no humans have ever left the cislunar space boundary. And so, sorry. And so for me, it's like, holy shit, like this is the most like impactful thing I could work on. And that became my North Star. And so I basically became obsessed with like, well, what are the key problems that we need to solve for us to have humans living on the moon and Mars? It's actually not rockets or transportation anymore. Like that ship has sailed with a lot of the big space launch providers. What is the next big space company going to be? And it has to be the one that's solving the most core human problem, which is habitats on the moon and Mars. And so basically from 16 years old onward to now, I just turned 23, I was like laser focused on solving this key problem of like off-world habitats. And then the question is like, well, how do you like, you know, do this in a way that makes sense? And of course you got to use resources on the moon to do this. And yeah, there's a lot more stuff. But that's how I got started.
Right, but when did it actually come from, oh, I had this crazy idea to, okay, I'm seriously going to do it?
Yeah, for me, that happened when I was in my third year at Berkeley. So I went to Berkeley. I studied electrical engineering, computer science. Fortunate enough to have enough credits to graduate early, and so I made a decision to go all in 2025. And part of that was a couple factors, right? Obviously, I've been following the industry for a very long time. I've been very obsessed with it. Talked to a lot of different people in the industry.
Yeah.
One of the key trends is the falling price of launch, which is going to enable an in-space economy, right? Because now it's cheaper to send stuff to space. Other reasons include, you know, changing geopolitical landscapes where now it's more interesting to be building on the moon. But most excitingly, in my opinion, is just this new wave of people realizing that, hey, like we can build on the moon. It's actually not that crazy. It's just about like what's a practical path towards doing it that isn't science fiction. And then I went down this rabbit hole of like, yeah, like we should be using resources on the moon for construction instead of having to ship everything from Earth to the moon. And then eventually, that's how Grew got started. Yeah.
Why not?
Because it's there.
Someone will say, you know, we have so many problems to solve here on Earth, but you're thinking about the moon. What would you say?
I mean, I'll give you the most blunt, straight answer is I'm not the person to solve the problems on Earth. Somebody else can solve that.
That's such a great quote. I'm not a person to solve
yeah, I'm not the person to solve.
Here.
Yeah, I mean, I was born here, but like I'm not the person to solve problems on Earth. Like it's not my interest. I think okay, here's like the real answer. It's this. If you look at if you try to like look at the trend of human progress and like what has really improved the lives of the human species and race as a whole, like what are the key like markers in that? In my view, it's really every technology revolution that's occurred in human history has always, first of all, occurred because it has to benefit the person. You know, technology and value, like they're very similar because in order for something to advance, it also and be adopted by everybody, it has to be benefiting everybody in a positive way.
Right.
Example, like a medieval king lives a much crappier life compared to you and I, who are not medieval
I
kings.
guess so, yeah.
And so it's like, in other words, if you can grow, and like every technology revolution has been correlated very closely to like humans figuring out how to grow the pie and explore and expand and use new resources in a new place. Case in point, the Industrial Revolution, the dot-com boom, now the AI revolution, and what we think is next is the Lunar Industrial Revolution. And that's the thing is, if we can use resources beyond Earth, like now we're not tapping into having to use as much resources on Earth. It actually benefits Earth in the long run. And so, in other words, in my view, colonizing space is actually a very good thing because we're going to improve the lives back on Earth as a whole.
Yeah, I wonder, what do you see that the rest of the world doesn't?
I think, well, one thing is just how inevitable it is going to be that we're going to have people living on the moon and Mars. I guess you're right. It does sound crazy. I'm just super used to it.
Yeah.
It's been incredibly obvious. I mean, even from when I was a kid, and I'm sure for a lot of kids out there, people who grew up in the space industry, like it's very obvious to us that we're gonna have people living on the moon and Mars, of course. And of course, we're gonna have like entire new economies born on the moon and Mars. And so this is very obvious. And I think a lot of people out there don't believe in the moon landing and all that stuff. And there's always going to be people who don't believe in that. That's fine. You know, freedom of thought, freedom of speech. But yeah, it's just very inevitable. So it's very exciting.
And you also went through Y Combinator.
Yes.
So when you were pitching this bold idea to them, what was their first reaction?
Well, actually, I had an argument for 5 minutes during a 10-minute interview with them. I guess, yeah, like that was fun. And I think it's just like, you know, looking back, that probably actually was good. I think it's all about conviction.
Yeah.
And that's the most important thing when you're doing this type of stuff. But I honestly, here's the thing, right? There's been a lot of different, I think, ideas over the last few years that I had of just various things. This is something that like, it was so extreme to the point where like, in terms of my conviction, where like, I did not care if anybody, in fact, everybody around me thought it was stupid. My own parents thought it was like, you know, my friends, my best friends in college when I was working on this, like,
They just like banned you.
I don't think I had a single person who was like, I think that's a good idea, Skyler. I actually don't. And that's actually why I decided to just do it myself and just start and start the journey, because I was like, you know what, like if no one else is gonna do it, like sure, why not I start? Like it's gonna be hard, of course, but we gotta start somewhere. And I think that is actually one of the things that, you know, both is a good thing now because it worked out from then until now. We still have a lot of things to do, but I'm just saying, like, from a starting point, like we got to where we are today because of that. More importantly, I think that's a sign. Like if someone's watching this and it's like you are willing to do the thing you want to do, even when all your friends are telling you you're a complete idiot and dunce, like that's probably a good sign you're doing the right thing. So.
But what do you think made Y Combinator say yes? Because I see, you know, even when I was going through the companies from your badge, there was like, okay, infrastructure, agents, all of these, and then hotels on the moon. I was like, wait a minute, let's go back.
Frankly, I think just conviction and betting on the founder. I mean, they probably saw something that I didn't see myself, which is really nice. Big shout out to them. YC has been great. They're amazing, incredible. And I think that was just that conviction. Yeah. But
you know, so people already paid you. So what did they buy exactly?
So reservation slot. So if you look at most space tourism companies, like how it works is you have to purchase basically like, okay, if you're gonna buy a Roadster, right? You're not gonna buy the whole Roadster right away. You're gonna put down a deposit. if you want to save your ticket on like an ultra luxury vacation to the Antarctica, you're gonna have to do the same thing. And so that's the same thing with suborbital flights. That's the same thing for trips to the space station. And so this is a key factor to ensure that people have buy-in, that they're actually serious about it. One of the things that we realized at GRU that isn't always obvious, it actually wasn't obvious to us in the beginning, was how important it is to be very selective with who you bring in.
Really?
Because, here's the reason why. Because the people that are going to be, for example, on the very first mission, right, to the hotel on the moon, like astronauts, like actual people, not our machines.
Yeah.
They represent the brand, and it's very important that you bring on people that are, great reputations, right? They understand how important this is. It's not just them making it about themselves, and so the narrative flips, because then it's not like, oh, like you need to go find these people. It's like, no, like we need, like they gotta find us. Like we gotta curate this in a way that makes sense. I think that was an early thing that we realized in company lifetime, but and we obviously are still very early, but that was an important realization.
So not everyone actually gets accepted.
No.
So
that's why we have an
you
application.
are very selective.
Yeah.
Oh wow! Okay.
You have to.
Good brands,
right?
Good reputation.
Yeah.
All right. People who are buying these, what are they actually buying in your opinion? Is it just like a dream, a status?
So that's another thing. Is like, let's dig into like what is the incentive, right, for people who even want to go to space. Yeah. So I'll talk a little bit about this. People, I think the common sort of takeaway on space tourism is it sounds kind of negative, which I can understand, right? And there probably is some level of envy in that sentiment. The truth is, every new piece of radical technology, like the invention of the airplane, it's always been wedged out, like carved out as a niche due to private funders. And so the way that we see it is a lot of these folks who are, excited to go to space and really have dedicated themselves towards this as something that they care about deeply in various ways, whether it's philanthropy or whatever. They really have experienced everything that life has to offer. And the question is, what's next, right? Nobody, 12 people in human history have walked on the moon. So no private human person has ever walked on the moon, has ever stayed in a hotel on the moon. And so for a lot of folks, it's really the experience of that. Here's another important note to hear that I also learned in this journey is when people think of hotel on the moon and they're thinking of the customer base that would be using this, they think that it has to look like the Four Seasons or like a beautiful, very overly dressed up hotel. People who are customers, but also are in general who are this customer base, they actually don't care. They don't care that it looks like the Four Seasons, because if they wanted to, they would just go to Four Seasons on Earth. What they want is they want to feel like the Apollo astronauts. They want to feel like they're exploring the moon. There's this level of like, think about like the most existential, the most deep human emotion and sentiment that separates us from animals. It's this innate desire to explore. Is this innate desire to like touch the ground, to like be as deep as you can to where you're going next.
Is it similar to like Everest, when
Everest?
people climb to Everest?
In fact, it is in fact very similar to Everest. Right? Everest is overrated now, right? When you have the moon. And so that is, I know I can't believe I'm saying this, but that is actually why people do this. Which, again, you might be like thinking, and I thought at first, like, this sounds crazy. Like, okay, I guess they don't need that much fancy stuff, which is great, obviously, for us in terms of the speed of which we can build a hotel, the engineering, like all that stuff. But I think it goes to show like what it really means to be a human is someone who truly, like, even if you can experience everything, even if you have all the resources and the safety net or in massive, like, blah, 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 people still want to feel like a human being and explore. I think there's something very beautiful in that. So
it is beautiful, but does it mean that it's only available for like super rich people?
Of course,
like
at first. That's inevitable.
At first.
Of course, yeah.
But like as technology evolves, we always get better prices, right?
Exactly. And so that's the thing, right? As, like I said, which is actually part of the reason why I started the company, is as the following launch prices go down, as we use more resources on the moon to develop products like the habitats and hotels, it's just going to be cheaper for everyone. So I don't think anybody really imagined that we would have transatlantic flights as cheap as it is today, back when the airplane was being developed. In fact, I mean, the first aircrafts were very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I mean, not like this chair, but you had like steel chairs, and it costs way more than what it is today.
Yeah.
But people were still willing to pay for it because of the experience, and obviously because of the convenience for work or for leisure. And so that's the same thing with the moon.
Yeah. But when people reserve these like spots right now, right? What do you do with this money?
Yeah, it's just parked in a deposit. So
they just wait for the moment to go.
Yeah. And so the important note is the deposits are actually fully refundable. So if they want it to get it back, they don't want to do this anymore.
So
they don't want to
change
save
your
their spot.
mind, too bad.
Yeah, exactly. They get it back. So
Okay. So you're pretty like flexible with your
we
terms.
designed it this way actually so that it's as like flexible as possible, because we're in the business of making sure that people actually want to go. Right?
Yeah.
Yes, it would protect more like our company, obviously, if it wasn't refundable. Right? That's great for business. But like, why would you want to do that? Because then you're taking money from people who don't actually want to go to space. Like, we only want to make sure that people who are doing this genuinely care about this and they're serious, right? So this enables us to be very flexible.
Are some credible and experienced people on your team? Why do you think they bet on a 23-year-old founder?
I believe that if you're going after something that's truly existential to a certain type of person to work on this, like for me, this is my life's work, right? There's nothing else that I can imagine myself doing. And I'm not just saying that because it's incredibly obvious that this is going to happen, and maybe not to 99% of the people out there. I think if you want to basically really, you cannot pattern match the type of task that we're going after. And therefore, working backwards from that, the type of company you have to build for that task to say a typical B2B SaaS company, or to say even a Submarine company or something like that, like a hard tech company. The way you win is if you, as like the entire human race, how do we win to actually make humans live on the moon and Mars, is you need a very ragtag group of individuals who believe that you can do the impossible. And you have to assemble the best in the world to make this happen. So you have to be a great like operator. You have to be a great executor. You have to be like just an execution machine, basically. And so what I realize is like, okay, there are specific things that we will need to accomplish along our roadmap, right? Which I actually want to talk about in a bit, because the roadmap is interesting, like how we think about what's critical path and not. What is critical path for us right now to move the needle is, can we make the first bricks on the moon? Is can we demo the inflatable, right? Because those two things are going to solve for the four main problems we need to solve when you're building a hotel on the moon, which is the temperature swings, pressure, micrometeorites, and radiation. So we're like, okay, micrometeorites and radiation, best way to solve that is we build bricks on the moon. And, for example, with making a brick on the moon, you need to interact with the regolith, which is dirt on the moon. And so there's a specific type of expertise here that is very useful. And really, the thing that I realize is that if you take like the best people in the world at any specific domain, people who dedicate their lives towards, a greater cause, right? For the sake of science, for the sake of research, they're not all the same. People are very unique and different. And so what I'm trying to say is that there are always going to be people in any expert domain in the world, this is what I believe, that want to do their life's work, but haven't found the right place for it, right? And so really, if you think about it, like the job of like the founder or whatever it sucks a lot of times, because you have to go and orchestrate. You have to be the one to bring people together, and that's a very hard thing to do. But again, if you are able to figure out how to do that and really show that, hey, like your best work can be done here, like this is still the most, like life is long, right? This is still the most exciting thing that you can be doing. And there's actually a credible path towards it, and that makes sense, and the timing is great, and blah blah blah, and you can get the right resources. Like I think that's the killer piece, right? And so if you can repeat that process, I mean that's what is going to build the next SpaceX. Another example that we like to use when we're looking at how to recruit is this like concept of a dumbbell. So a dumbbell has like two heavy sides to it.
Yeah.
Right? And so you want the people who are very experienced, to your question, right?
Yeah.
Very experienced. But sometimes experience is not all that matters.
Yeah.
Obviously, especially in a startup. You want the folks who are very high energy, high agency, well, across the board, very young, and have a chip on their shoulder, and they want to prove themselves and their engineering capability. And so the nice thing is if you pair these two kinds of people together in a room, like that's where the magic happens, because you have the folks who have deep understanding of like how do you build a specific thing in a specific domain, but you have the folks who are like, hey, like let's think of this creatively, like can we do this in a way that we didn't think that we could do it, and you have this mixture of all these ideas that are put out there. I mean, one thing that I believe is like once you share an idea, it's not like your idea anymore. You don't need to feel that attachment to it. It's the group's idea. And when you're in a group discussion, the whole point is just to figure out what is the best group idea. Right? It doesn't matter who it came from. And so that's a pretty important thing. And so another thing about hiring as well is so we most startups I think get into a trap of like, and I'm just speaking from observation, not as someone who's built a big startup yet. Most startups have this fall into a trap of hiring too quickly and like just hiring for like vanity and stuff like that. It's very important to think about what is going to really move a needle for the next stage. So we're at a stage where, you know, we finished YC, where there's a lot of things that we'll be announcing soon, but one of the big things is payload development, right? So like I mentioned, we have a payload. So a payload is basically a thing that you're sending to somewhere. So we're sending a machine to the moon to make the first bricks. What's going to move a needle on that is bringing on like the next few hires for that. And so we basically work backwards from like, okay, what are the key bottlenecks that we need to solve that we don't have yet in-house to execute this payload, and let's go find the best in the world for that. And I think that cycle, like that's like the mental model that that I think is for success for recruiting. That isn't necessarily okay. You need some guy who looks like he's like this great engineer from this big company in space, and blah blah blah, or this guy like. That is very, you know, reasoning by analogy and reasoning by pattern matching. You have to work backwards, which, by the way, I think is the biggest thing out of maybe the takeaway here is like everything that we've done in the company is very much working backwards. Like even the hotel on the moon, that came about by working backwards from what do we need to enable so that we can be building on the moon. And the hotel on the moon, it's like working backwards from that. That's how we developed the roadmap. Then working backwards on the roadmap is like, okay, what are the machines that we need to build said hotel? And then working backwards on that is like, who are the people we need in the room to build said machine? So I think it's a beautiful way of thinking because you actually cut out a lot of the fluff instead of working forwards.
Yeah. Okay. So, but you know, I mean, building hotels on the moon is not just like building a website or a piece of software, right?
Yes,
so it's not. It doesn't only depend on you. So talking about the roadmap and just the resources, how do you even do that? Because like obviously it's like a highly regulated area and you have to have a lot more resources and probably limitations and stuff. So how do you even do that? Can you explain like the next step?
So okay, this is also my favorite part. So basically, okay, hotel on the moon sounds very crazy, right? What are the things that we have to do in-house and what are the things that we have to rely on partners, right? That's a key thing. So for example, launch. We're not building the rocket that goes there. For example, landing. Likely not build the lander that goes there.
Yeah.
Power, communication systems. These are all things that we won't be building. Why? Because there are existing providers. It just isn't really necessary. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. The key thing that we offer is the ability to construct on the moon. That has not been done yet, and we're on track towards being the first to do this. So that is the key way that we fit into the puzzle.
All right.
So we will work with all those different partners that I just mentioned.
So you just
I just can't say names, but like we will work with all those
So you
partners,
just need somehow basically to get the rocket ship that will bring fuel, whatever materials, resources to the moon so you can produce there. And like all the bricks will be produced there.
Yeah, I think one of the things is a lot of people think like I think what's underpinning your question is like, isn't this like dependent on a lot of dependencies? The answer is yes, of course. I'd be lying if not. But it's actually happening way quicker than what we think. Like NASA is sending landers to the moon every single month starting next year. I don't think people realize how fast that is. Like there's an acceleration that's happening this year, next year, and the year after to be building any types of things on the moon. Which is amazing news for us because then we can actually build our hotel faster. And that is also amazing news for the entire industry in general because all the other companies that are obviously developing businesses but are our partners for things like power, for comms, they can also develop their technology faster. So you can kind of think of this as like the gold rush, but the moon rush.
Why is it so? Because I think after 50 plus years, we're going back to the moon finally again.
Yes.
Why now? What's going on?
Geopolitics. Yeah, so there are a lot of the big...
Again? Like the Cold War thing?
Yes, again. So two big countries are basically competing for dominance on the moon. And there's a question of, okay, whoever is the first ones to construct materials, products on the moon, may be able to eventually, claim land on the moon.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, as bizarre that may sound, it's really so.
And honestly, I'm surprised that we didn't even make bricks on the moon when we first went in the Apollo era. But yeah, it's a very interesting time to be alive working on this one. It's a delicate balance of how all the geopolitics that are going on. But yeah, it's interesting. It makes for an interesting thing, and thankfully for our business, it actually provides an extra boost because even though our primary customer and this whole gambit of the wedge is hotel on the moon, turns out that the technology that's underpinning that is also useful for all kinds of government-related applications on the moon. Yeah.
But okay, I may understand investors why they believed you and people who want to work with you, but I think it's much more harder to convince people who send rocket ships to the moon. Why would they work with you?
Oh, that's actually been. Oh yeah, let me tell you a little bit about this. So let me think about how to phrase this in a way where I can speak about it without saying who we're working with. We found, first of all, it's very important, obviously, that you're a competent engineer, right?
Yeah.
If you can build a payload that makes sense, that's going on a machine, that's going to space, right? Quick background I didn't share was when I was a sophomore at Berkeley, I built a 3D printer that we got NASA funding for that we sent to space with Virgin Galactic. So I've done this thing before. It's different, but it's a mini 3D printer. And so it was a team of grad and PhD students, and I was a sophomore working on the embedded systems and the automation stack for that. So a lot of Arduino code and things. So one piece, but still send something to space. In my view, maybe this is another thing that isn't normal, but it's actually pretty straightforward to build something that goes to space. Okay. That sounds crazy. Well, let me rephrase. It is reasonable to send something to space. And here's why, right? So we basically ran a strategy where we approached the different space launch companies in a way where it's like, hey, this is not just, which is true, it is not just a payload, right? Because we're a tiny, we're a startup, right? It's not like we're NASA where we can buy a big piece of the payload. Important note for the viewers, it's very common I get these questions where, oh, NASA, SpaceX, aren't they? No, they're different. NASA is an agency that provides funding to private space companies, like all the big space companies, and potentially us, to do things in space. And so, basically, we approach these launch providers with the value of hey, we're going to make bricks on the moon, right? This is a very important thing for the current goals in the government and also the current goals for a lot of different folks. You probably want to be the guys who are delivering that payload. And that was part of what's enabled us to get on not only a slot, but on a slot that is very early, which we will also announce very soon. Yes.
Interesting, but a stupid question. If we are, as human species, to go to the moon and colonize it, how do we like breathe there? What do we need to wear? How do we exist there?
Yeah, so again, like basically there's like 4 main problems that you need to solve immediately. The moment you get on, say, the lunar surface or the Mars or on Mars or any planet where there's no like atmosphere like Earth's, the first thing that'll kill you is the lack of pressure. The second thing that'll kill you is the temperature swings. And then, you have to go in order of what will kill you, though.
Kill you.
Yeah, because you have to think about what will kill you first versus what will kill you later, because you need to build the technology to make sure you don't get killed first, and then you do this, right?
That would be nice.
So then radiation micrometeorites. And so the first 2 problems are solved with an inflatable, right? If you can minimize the up mass and the volume, and then maximize the habitable volume on the moon or Mars in an inflatable, that would be very amazing.
But you can't do it on the whole planet. You can do it only inside the building.
So basically, there's a concept of terraforming, which people have talked about, which is like basically turning a certain like planet into a place like the Earth, where it's obviously you don't need a spacesuit. Our view is that is not a practical way to start. You got to start by building habitats and then expand. So towards having the entirety of the planet terraformed.
But technically, it still sounds possible, right?
Oh, it's possible, yeah. It's just very hard.
Yeah.
Everything within the realm of physics is possible, right? It's not breaking the laws of physics that we know today. So.
Yeah. So how, what does success look to you in the next, like, let's say, year or a couple of years?
Yeah, that's our payload lands on the moon and makes the world's first product ever on the moon, the first bricks, and also demos the inflatable. That's success because we just proved, first of all, we're the first company to do this, but that this is a possible thing. Think of like the discovery of fire, like the Promethean moment when we figured out we can do stuff with fire, and all the other technologies that exploded because of this. It's the same concept of when we make the first product ever on the moon. It's now like, oh my goodness, what else can we do on the moon? We can make semiconductors on the moon. We can build landing pads on the moon. We can build data centers on the moon. Everything else stems from this. And so that's what success is. For the business, it's very clear because now it's like, okay, if anybody wants to build anything on the moon, they have to use the underpinning technology, which is what GRU has developed, because it's a lot cheaper. A very small percentage of the brick mass is brought from Earth. The majority percentage of that brick mass is actually with lunar resources. The reason why this is great for business is because if you're a company that wants to build, say, a road on the moon, you right now have to bring all the concrete from Earth. But if you can just buy off GRU and get like at least a 50% discount, big hit, right? That's a big boost. For the hotel specifically, it's important because the Titan submarine, unfortunately, that didn't end up so well. We're obviously very aware of all these cautionary tales. We want to make sure that the hotel is going to be safe. Safety is the top priority for us. We take this extremely seriously. So the reason why we're also doing this mission is to test the safety systems, right? So there's a lot of safety systems that we won't be able to test, obviously, in the first mission, but the key ones is, can we even inflate the thing? Can we maintain temperature and pressure inside said thing? Can we make these bricks that are going to protect you from potential meteorite impacts from radiation on the moon? Is that even possible? That's the question that we'll be answering on the mission as a black and white yes or no, and that's what success looks like.
All right, yeah. So as we're can expect it probably within the next few years, it's not about people living there already. It's about starting building there.
Yes.
All right. Yes. And when you think about the mission that will go to the moon, for how long can these people stay at this hotel? Do you have this timeline in mind? Is it a one-day trip or a week vacation? Yeah.
So roughly it'll be a week long. And so context is basically the moon has these cycles where it's 14 Earth. One moon day, lunar day, is 14 Earth days. Yeah. One lunar night is 14 Earth nights. So you really don't want to stay longer than that.
Probably
because then the power systems get very complicated and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So a week is what's reasonable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fun. Yeah. All right. And as a founder, what do you think is your biggest superpower?
I think the ability to bring people together and just interface with all kinds of different people. Yeah, and passion and excitement. Yeah.
And the weakness?
Weakness?
You should have one.
No, of course there's lots of weaknesses. I think both obsession, like I have OCD, so like both like extreme obsession is a good thing, but impulsiveness is part of the equation. And obviously in general you can point to my age and inexperience, but that's out of my control. So but that is a fair weakness. Like when you're dealing with people who are very high in power, they're not used to seeing a guy that looks like me going up to the White House or DC. Yeah. But so far it's been great, and it's been a great experience, and great people have been supporters of our company. We're very thankful for that. So.
Do you try also to change your image somehow? Especially when you talk to people from the government and so on, to look more presentable. You know, like I have a friend, she's like in construction business, so she always wears suits and so on. So she tries to look younger than she is. Oh, that's something funny. Like that.
No, I'm pretty real with people in the government, actually. I actually find that to be very effective, but it wasn't even planned. I'm just kind of myself, which is kind of funny. This entire thing, by the way, including this company, is literally just myself. Yeah. I mean, if you ask my friends from like college, elementary school, kindergarten, like anybody, I was just that guy in the back of the classroom who couldn't stop talking about space. I mean, just
nothing has changed.
Nothing's changed. So that's my point, is like nothing's really changed, or like I'm not really being anybody different. I'm just being myself, and I guess it worked out so far, and I think it will continue to work out, which by the way is a really beautiful realization. I hope more people do that. So
like kind of like get to double down on your childhood dreams, and like keep working on them. But what has been the most ridiculous thing or reaction that you got when you shared your idea? I don't think that's crazy. It's probably the most common, but like something that's really stood out.
I think one really amazing experience for us was, the third week of the batch, I was invited to go on Fox News to speak with Laura Trump on her show that made national television a few weeks ago. And that was an incredible experience. Like, obviously an honor to do that. But one of the few questions that was kind of funny was, she asked me like to comment on, she played a clip of the president speaking about the importance of moon stuff, and I was like, "Oh, what do you think, Skyler?" And I was like, "Wow, this is amazing what he said." I mean, it's very aligned with what we want to do at GRU. So I thought that was interesting. But honestly, I'm kind of numb. I should probably. This is great. Actually, I'm reflecting on my last like 4 months with you right now live. I mean, this is incredible that there have been a lot of exciting experiences. I think the biggest thing for me is this, right? As a whole, like we're going after something that is very hard, but also very big. If this succeeds, this will be the biggest company ever to exist on Earth. The one that harnesses the resources of the entire galaxy, starting with the moon.
I have goosebumps.
Goosebumps, right? But the thing is this, right? This is something that I believed as well before I started the company, is whatever company that is going to be, that's going to make that happen, has to be the one that can rally the entire world together, or polarize the world, either or, basically get global mindshare. That is one of the things that we did extremely well, was our launch and going as far as possible. Because now, if you Google Moon Hotel, we are the indisputable Moon Hotel company. Like, we're the first ones to show up for 30 pages straight.
Great, no competitors, right?
There are no competitors. It's all blue ocean, so it's incredible. Which means a few things. Which means that, yes, like there's a huge chunk of people who don't believe this is going to happen, and they have lots of things to say about that. There's a huge chunk of people who are very excited, and they want this to happen. I think that is actually something that has benefited a lot to us in achieving certain goals. Case in point, if most space companies, right, if you're trying to get your name out there in stakeholders, right, stakeholders in the government, stakeholders with other commercial companies, it's hard, especially as a startup, right? You have to pitch yourself, you have to explain it. Nowadays, I can't believe, honestly, I'm used to it now, but literally what's been happening since like end of January, early February is you walk into a room and it's relatively spaced up, and you just say your company, and immediately you're like, oh, I've heard of you guys. Yeah, you grew space. Oh, okay, yeah. Hotel Moon guys. Okay, yeah. Moon guys, you're the moon guy. And I think like, initially it was kind of like taken aback because I'm not used to that. But strategically, it's helped us a lot with anything, with negotiations, with hiring, with like literally everything you can think of. And so what I'm saying is, think of like a volleyball, right? Like we basically set up the ball, right, with the launch. That was what the purpose of the launch was. If we can go as big as possible, we set up the ball for a smash and try to set it up as high as possible so that the smash impact is as effective as possible to move the needle on the business goals. And obviously the things in business goals are obviously like customers, product, hiring, etc. And so,
Are you a good volleyball player?
No. I haven't played in a long time.
Hopefully you're a better founder.
Yes.
And now we should look at the camera and say, to the moon!
To the moon.
All right, thank you, Skyler.
Yes, that was fun. Yeah, thank
Yay.
you. Yeah.